Ghislaine, Maxwell has responded to recently unsealed US court documents which detail claims by victims of convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. The documents, which were released on Wednesday in New York, give insight into the relationships between Mr Epstein and prominent public figures, including Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Prince Andrew and Michael Jackson. Ms Maxwell issued a statement through her lawyers saying she took no position on the court's recent decision to unseal documents. Her focus is on the upcoming appellate argument, asking for her entire case to be dismissed. And joining me live on this is former Trump administration advisor Mick Mulvaney. Mick, good to see you once again. The Epstein court documents have been released. There was so many people trying to access these documents at the time of the release that the server crashed. Everyone wanted to know the names that were in these documents, even though most were not accused of any wrongdoing. What's been the fallout and the reaction to these 40 out of 250 documents released in the States so far?
Yeah, Kenny, it's been a tremendous amount of attention, a lot of smoke, but no fire. There's a lot of very prominent names on there. You've got Bill Clinton, you've got Donald Trump, you've got Prince Andrew. But as you've mentioned, there's no real new allegations about wrongdoing by any of these very, very famous people. So while it's somewhat salacious and interesting, it doesn't seem to change anybody's position about what went wrong with Mr. Epstein. That, yes, Bill Clinton knew him. Everybody knew that. Yes, Bill Clinton flew on his airplane, but he did not go down to the island where his alleged sex parties were taking place. Bill Clinton took the airplane to go on humanitarian missions overseas and so forth. You can tell similar stories about other famous people. So it looks like this will be much ado about nothing. There are still a few names that have not been released, and it may be that those will give us some new insights as to whatever actually happened with Mr. Epstein. But the bottom line is this: he had a lot of very, very famous friends. There is no question about that. And if anything, this raises new questions about his death. Did he really commit suicide in jail, or was there some effort to have him eliminated?
Yeah, and just on former President Donald Trump, who is named but is not accused of any wrongdoing, and you mentioned Bill Clinton there, for someone who is heavily involved in political circles, I mean, how you say there's a lot of smoke but no fire. How damaging are these documents in terms of reputational damage?
Look, when you've been involved in a riot against the national Capitol in order to change the outcome of an election, doing this probably doesn't change very many people's opinions about you. Keep in mind, as you correctly pointed out, there's no allegations of wrongdoing against Mr. Trump, against Mr. Clinton, etc. In fact, I talked to the president about this when it first came out several years ago, and he's like, Mick, this guy was really weird, and I had him banned from Mar-a-Lago. So there's really no legitimate allegations of wrongdoing against the former President Trump or against former President Clinton. It's not going to have any political impact, I don't think, at all.
OK. Well, former president and current leading Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump has appealed a ruling by Maine's Secretary of State barring him from the state's primary ballot over his role in the January 6 attack on the US Capitol, and will soon appeal a similar ban by the Colorado Supreme Court. Do you think he's going to be successful in that appeal? I mean, the clock is ticking to the election this year.
It is, and it's creating a great deal of consternation and difficulty here. There's a piece of our Constitution that was added after our Civil War 170 years ago that said if you participated in an insurrection, you might not be able to run for president. It's unclear exactly to whom that language applies to. In Colorado, a court made a decision after going through a process that Donald Trump had participated in an insurrection and could not be on the ballot. That's one case. In Maine, it was actually a single individual. Their Secretary of State, under Maine state law, has the right to make a determination, and she determined by herself that Donald Trump should not be on the ballot there. So there's going to be two different challenges, even though they sound like they're very similar. They can be very, very different, and they could have different outcomes. The Supreme Court of the United States will probably take up both of these cases, probably take them up very quickly. My guess, Kenny, is that Trump will be on the ballot in all of those states. It's very, very unusual. It's never been done before to keep a president off a ballot using the 14th Amendment to our Constitution. And my guess is that the Supreme Court of the United States will overturn these state court decisions.
And meanwhile, it keeps him in the headlines. Mick? Thanks so much.
We still talk about him, don't we?
That's Absolutely,
right.
Yep.
Thanks,
Mick Mulvaney, thanks for joining us.